you don't shy away from talking about those tough moments. Do you think that that's perhaps an important part of making peace with your tougher times, is to in fact share them and just talk about them openly?
I think so. I don't think that men in particular are very good at doing that. I think there's always been an assumption that you've got to tough it out. You've got to be seen to be strong. And actually, I think the more confident you are, the more open you're prepared to be, and the more vulnerability you're prepared to show. I know there's still a load of things that I need to get better at, want to get better at. Lots of things I haven't achieved yet that I want to achieve. But I'm less worried about talking about that now than I was when I was younger. I thought that show of vulnerability would be held against me. And again, I suppose it's something that age and confidence and experience gives you, that not only do I know I know myself very well and I'm comfortable with myself, strengths and weaknesses, but I also can see that in other people, and the opportunity to help them is something that as a coach, I really enjoy.
Yeah, that's it. Was extremely valuable, especially in the position you're in today, to have that sort of wisdom and experience, and also inner peace to know that you're accepting of the bits, like you said, your strengths and your weaknesses. And you start off in the book talking about the Euro 96 penalty shootout and the sort of heaviness that brought to your life. And you offer up something that none of us could have known in the moment. And that's that, as you approach that situation, you had started to worry about what could go wrong rather than what you're actually in control of. So what was cognitively going on for you as you approached the ball?
I think it's part of, in that instance, a slight lack of preparation, and that's no criticism of anybody else. That's just where we were. Penalty shootouts weren't something that were a regular part of the game. We're going back 30 years now. Almost every cup competition has one at the end of 90 minutes. So I wasn't confident in my technique, and I wasn't confident going through that process. Football's very much a team game, and if I was any good at scoring, I wouldn't play at the back where I've played for 25 years. So immediately you're in a situation that you're not as confident of. And then in what is a team environment, you're suddenly the center of attention with 90,000 people just looking at the walk from the center circle to the penalty spot. And it's easy then for the brain to take you into the things that you can't control, just because you haven't been through that process before or hadn't thought or worked through that process. And so by the time I got to the ball, just to get it on target would have been an achievement in itself, because the psychological then affects the physical movements and everything else. And I mean, it took me a long time to be able to really go through all of this and to break it down into those processes, and to be, I suppose, honest enough to admit to myself what I'd been through in that situation. But it definitely it helped me to prepare the team, or to work through what the team needed to be prepared for when I've been a manager. And then, of course, what happened to me after, and the experiences I had after of having to rebuild my own confidence from that back, broadened my perspective on life completely. Because as a sportsman, very often you've got a very narrow perspective, and you think that your whole being depends on winning a game on a Saturday, and actually that isn't. But until you have children, until you experience other things in your life, you have to have that really narrow focus probably to be a professional. But I think you're a better professional and a better person once you're able to broaden out that perspective. Yeah,
because of course, you're under such an immense amount of pressure, and in any sort of high level sporting game, or I've spoke to Jessica Ennis about this. There's an element of perfection that you want, and that you almost have to have if you want to be the best. And there's so few things in life where perfection is needed, but in sport, it really is, and that puts so much pressure on you. And then, to deal with that not turning out how you'd hoped, and you talk about this in the book really eloquently, about that heaviness, and you felt that you'd let everybody down, and that took a long period of sort of healing and recovery after that. How did that experience and that period affect your mental health?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I don't think I viewed it in that way at the time. I knew I was struggling in terms of confidence whenever I went back and played with England, because the people I felt most for were the other players and the other staff, some of whom it was their last opportunity to win something. So although I had another chance to go back and play, and my career, I still had another 10 years ahead of me, some of those guys, that was their moment. That was the opportunity to win something with England, which we've only ever done once as a nation ever. So I think I hear the military guys talk about this. Yes, they fight for Queen and country, but they fight first and foremost for the person alongside them, because they know they've got their back at the most difficult time, and that's where the bond is strongest. And so I felt that very heavily, that I'd let down those that had worked so hard with me. But then, of course, you have got this broader thing of walking down the street and lads poking their heads out the van and shouting abuse at you. And that's quite hard to take. You go to every away ground and the fans are chanting. And of course, that's quite an ordeal. And although I wanted to battle against that and prove that I could play against them, inside, that's, of course, hurting you. And because part of playing for the national team is that you represent all of those people. So when you play for your country, they're all with you. Now you can see the feeling that of negativity against you, and that's difficult to take. So it took me a long time. A couple of times I saw sports psychologists. That wasn't prevalent in our sport at that time. I think it's an underused resource. I think other sports use that power of the mind in a much more positive way than in football. I think people like tennis players, golfers have done that for years. So I had to kind of find my own way, really. And that did take a long time. And I think some things just take time to heal, and you have to work out your own way through it. But my worry would be that actually there is support there for young people. You know, there are setbacks that they're going to suffer. There is rejection from, for example, any talent pathway. If you're an actor, if you're a dancer, if you're a musician, rejection is going to be part of your journey. And that is the resilience to come back from that will determine success. But it's not always easy to be able to work that out yourself. And I think the more you can talk to other people about it, the better.